I grew up in a very small town in Indiana where everyone knew each other. I went to school with the same people from kindergarten through high school. But I loved my town. It felt like a big extended family. I knew my place and exactly where I belonged. When it came time for me to apply to college, my school required every student to apply to at least 7 universities. This was to make sure we would all get in somewhere even if it wasn't our first or second choice. The college I most wanted to go to was nearby, only about 45 minutes away from home. But there were only a couple of other colleges in my state, so I had to apply to other universities, some that were in states away. The thought of being in a different state than the rest of my family absolutely terrified me. The acceptance letters started coming in one by one. I had been accepted to my dream school and I was thrilled. But then I got a letter that I wasn't expecting. I had been given a nearly full ride scholarship for a school in Chicago. My parents were so proud. I tried to act excited, but inside, my feelings were mixed. I hadn't been given a scholarship to my dream school in Indiana. I would have to pay for it with multiple loans. If I chose to accept the scholarship, I would likely leave college debt-free. I didn't want to live in a big city or be so far away from my family. My parents didn't try to persuade me either way, but I knew that deep down they wanted me to accept the scholarship, so I did. I moved to Chicago that fall. I had expected the adjustment to be hard, but it was worse than I could have even imagined. Meeting new people was hard for me, and I was shy and quiet. The weeks passed by, and I still hadn't been able to make any friends. I was really considering giving up and just moving back home. But still, I didn't want to disappoint my parents, so I forced myself to hang in there. One night, I was relaxing in my dorm when I noticed that I had a notification on Instagram. Someone had requested to follow me. I clicked on the person's profile and saw that it was a very good-looking guy around my age named Cameron. In Cameron's bio, he had the name of my college along with his expected graduation date. It just so happened to be the same as mine. I hadn't met him yet, but that wasn't really surprising considering how big the school was and the fact that I'd only been there for a little over a month. I accepted his friend request and began scrolling through his photos. Not long after I accepted his friend request, he sent me a direct message. "Hey, I know we've never met, but I stumbled across your profile and thought you were really cute," he wrote. I was totally surprised and flattered. I messaged him back saying, "Wow, that's so sweet of you. You're not so bad yourself." From there, we launched into a conversation about our school, our majors, and classes. I found myself really enjoying talking to him and looking forward to his messages. We ended up swapping numbers and texting daily for the next week. By the end of that first week, he asked me out on a date. He said we could meet at a restaurant close to the campus and then we'd do something fun afterward. I was super excited, and when the night of our date arrived, I arrived there just a few minutes early and sent a quick text to Cameron telling him I was there. The next thing I heard was someone calling out my name behind me. A man with blonde hair came up to me, a giant smile on his face. "Hey, I'm Cameron," he said. Luckily, the dinner went very well. We got along in person just as well as we had over text. I took that time to ask him about what he had planned for us to do the rest of the evening. He explained that we would be hanging out with a group of his close friends. He explained to me that it was a type of exclusive club, like a fraternity or sorority, I asked him. He said it was just a group of people that had one similar, very strong passion. This seemed a little strange to me, but I wanted it to seem like I was laid back, so I didn't ask any more about it. He drove me to a very tall building right in the middle of the city. We went up to the 16th floor and walked down a long hallway with many rooms. We came to a room that was numbered 66. Cameron reached into his pocket and pulled out a key before unlocking the door and opening it. A red light filled the room and everyone in there was dressed in black. The people that filled the room were of all different ages. What sort of club was this? "Now that Lily and Cameron are here, we can begin," a man wearing a cloak said to the group. Everyone quickly got up and began to form a circle. Cameron pulled me along to join them. Everyone joined hands and closed their eyes as the man in the cloak began chanting. He was saying words I didn't understand. I felt incredibly uncomfortable. "It's time for the sacrifice," the man with the cloak said. He pulled out a small knife from his pocket, and to my shock and horror, he sliced open the tip of his finger, allowing the blood to flow into a glass. He passed the knife and the glass to the person closest to him, and they repeated what he did. This happened all the way around the circle until it was my turn. I was in a state of shock and too scared to move. Everyone was staring at me. When I didn't move, Cameron took the knife from my hands and sliced the tip of my finger. He then did the same to his own hand. When the glass had been passed all the way around the circle, it was handed back to the man with the cloak. "It's time for the next phase of the sacrifice," he said, causing my heart to drop to my stomach. Who were these psychos? Suddenly, 2 more people entered the room, dragging a woman with them. She was bound with ropes. The girl was pushed into the middle of the circle, and I watched in horror and disgust as the cloaked man picked up the glass that held the blood sacrifice and forced her to drink it. I knew that without a doubt, Cameron had brought me into a cult. Suddenly, everyone began chanting all at once. The cloaked man pulled out what looked to be a giant sword. He stood over the woman and raised the sword in the air before bringing it back down. I didn't see it make contact with her body. I had already turned around and was racing towards the door. I sprinted towards the elevator as fast as I could. The doors opened and I ran inside. I called 911, gave them the exact room number where everything had been taking place, and they sent officers there immediately. I took the first taxi I could and went back to campus. Later that night, officers came to visit me at my dorm to question me. I told them all about Cameron. They asked to see his account on my phone, but to my shock, he had deleted it. They then told me that officers had arrived at the room only 10 minutes after my call, only to find it completely empty. They told me that they had seen people leaving the room on surveillance video. They just didn't know who they were or how to track them. Nearly a year later, it is still an open investigation, and officers continue to work through security footage to figure out where the cult is and who the victim was. I'm terrified to think that Cameron is still out there. At night, I can still hear the sound of the woman's screams as she was stabbed. When I was in high school, I was a pretty quiet kid. In fact, I barely even spoke to guys. That's why I was particularly surprised when at the end of a school day, I went to my locker and saw that a note had been stuck inside. I opened it up and it read, "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. How I wish you were mine." I was surprised and even a little bit flattered. No one had ever said anything like this to me before. I knew I wasn't hideous or anything, but I had never considered myself to be pretty. I had low self-confidence and picked apart every flaw I saw in myself. I had no idea who could have sent the note. The next day at lunch, I showed it to my friends, and they were all super curious to find out who had sent it. We spent the rest of lunch period listing the names of guys in our grade who could have written the note. The notes continued to come day after day for weeks. Sometimes they would show up in the morning, and sometimes they would show up at the end of the day. I still had no clue who could be leaving them. One Saturday night, a couple of weeks after the notes first started coming, I was laying in bed scrolling through my phone. My parents were having dinner with friends and my sister was at a party. I got a notification on my phone and realized that someone had added me on Instagram. I clicked on the profile and was shocked when I recognized my own face in the profile picture. The bio read, "The official fan page of the stunning Catherine Gallagher," which was my name. I was shocked to see that the only person the account was following was me, and every single picture was of me. Some were taken from my various social media profiles, and others had been taken without me knowing. There were pictures of me sitting in class, walking home from school, and eating lunch with my friends. My heart began beating faster as I realized this was no ordinary crush. This was a serious stalker, and whoever it was, they were a total creep. I refreshed the page and noticed that a new picture had been posted just seconds ago. When it finished loading, my jaw dropped open in horror. It was a picture taken from the outside of my house. It was dark outside and there was light coming from my bedroom window only. I noticed that in the picture, my bedroom window was wide open. Suddenly, my stomach dropped as I gazed over at my bedroom and remembered that I had opened it to let the spring air in. I sprung off my bed and raced to the window. I shut it as fast as I could and pulled the blinds shut. I looked around my room in terror as I tried to think of what my next move should be. I decided to hurry downstairs and double-check that all the doors were locked. My stomach sank as I realized the door to the sunroom was unlocked. I quietly cursed my sister, knowing she had been the one to go out that way and that she had forgotten to lock the door. I locked it myself and then hurried back upstairs to my room to check my phone. My blood ran cold as I realized that a new picture had been posted only a few minutes ago. It was of me laying on my bed, scrolling through my phone and wearing the exact same outfit I was wearing now. I knew without a doubt it was taken from inside my closet. I didn't move an inch as I tried to figure out what to do next. My heart was beating so fast I was sure whoever was in my room could hear it. But I was trying to decide if I should pretend to have not seen the picture or make a run for it. Before I could decide, my closet doors swung open. I screamed at the top of my lungs and backed away. I was shocked when I realized I recognized the person in front of me. It was the last person I would have ever expected to be standing in my bedroom on a Saturday night. His name was Mr. Perry, and he was my algebra teacher. "You freak!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. I was filled with anger and disgust as I realized that he had been the one that wrote me all of those notes. He had been the one who took the pictures of me without knowing. "You're sick. You're a sick, sick person," I said to him, my voice trembling. Mr. Perry took a step closer to me. "Please, Catherine, calm down. Don't yell," he pleaded. I was angrier than I ever thought possible. "Calm down? Calm down? You came to my house to stalk me. You're in my freaking bedroom." "I can explain," he said. He then told me how it had all started as an innocent crush when I had been placed in his class. He had planned to only write the notes and do nothing more, but as time went on, he became obsessed. He couldn't stop. "It's like an addiction," he told me. "Do you expect me to feel bad for you?" I asked him, my anger clear in my voice. I then told him how I was going to call the police and talk to the principal. I'd make sure that he'd never work another day in his life. The more I talked, the more he panicked. Suddenly, he lunged at me and placed his hands around my throat, squeezing as hard as he could. We dropped to the floor and he was hovering over me. In one quick moment, I rammed my knee into his groin and he screamed in pain, rolling over to his side. I grabbed my phone and raced out of the house. I jumped in my car and began speeding away. I called 911 and told them everything that had happened. The police caught Mr. Perry before he had even gotten out of my neighborhood. Through security footage, they were able to prove that he really had been the one who left all those notes in my locker. Today, he sits in a jail cell. I can't help but think that I would be dead if I hadn't been able to escape him. When I was in middle school, I received a friend request on Instagram from a girl named Elizabeth who lived in Oklahoma. I lived in New York at the time. She was around my age, and most of her pictures featured the farm where she lived. She sent me a direct message and told me that she had stumbled upon my account and was so interested in what my life was like living in a big city. It was her dream to move out of her small town and live the city life. We began messaging each other back and forth and eventually swapped numbers. It was easy to talk to Elizabeth, and we became friends, even without her ever meeting me in real life. It felt like we had known each other for ages. We texted every single day, multiple times a day. She told me all about what it was like living in a small town. She explained how the closest Walmart was over 2 hours away, and most of the food her family ate, they grew themselves. It was interesting learning about a way of life that was so different than my own. I told her all about the life in the city and how the beautiful Christmas lights were this time of year. Elizabeth and I got so close that we began telling each other secrets, things I wouldn't have even told my close friends from school. We talked about our crushes, disagreements we had with our parents, and even insecurities we had about ourselves. She told me about her parents' money problems, and I told her about my parents' divorce. I trusted her more than anyone else in my life. I had been friends with Elizabeth for months and realized that we had only ever texted. We had never talked on the phone before. Of course, I knew what she looked like from her photos, but it would be so amazing to talk to her face to face through video chat. I brought up the idea to Elizabeth, but she seemed really hesitant for some reason. I asked her why she didn't want to, and she told me she just thought I would think she wasn't as pretty as she was in her pictures. This seemed weird to me. We had been friends for months. I told her every secret I ever had. Why would she think I would judge her for how she looked? I told her I didn't care how she looked and I just wanted to talk face to face. Eventually, she gave in and agreed to talk through FaceTime. I called her and she picked up on the 4th or 5th ring. I was surprised and confused when I came face to face with a middle-aged man with glasses. He wore a suit and was sitting in what looked like an office. Was this Elizabeth's dad or something? Was she playing a prank on me? Hey, is Elizabeth there? I asked. The man cleared his throat nervously. Actually, I'm Eliza, he said. I had no idea what he was talking about. He explained that he had found my account and thought I was really beautiful. He wanted to get to know me, but thought I would be creeped out if he knew I was actually an older man and not a young girl. He begged me to still be his friend. I was disgusted and shocked. I thought of all the things I had told him about myself, all the while thinking I was speaking with a girl my age. I hung up and blocked the number immediately. I was heartbroken. I felt so betrayed, but worst of all, I had lost what I had believed was a genuine friendship. A friendship that, in reality, had never existed. Be sure to check out the other news stories on Anna Horror, and sleep tight.